Welcome to the Practice Podcast, conversations probing the nature of practice. I'm your host, Dave Fearon, co-author with Peter Vale of the digital book on Practice as a Way of Being. Find it at mylibrary.world. And now to our show. Exhilaration is what I'm feeling right now, just having said goodbye to this podcast guest, Scott Beebe, who's running a very well-organized business consulting firm aimed at particularly the architectural and construction field, relatively small businesses who are doing all these wonderful projects that make every community spruced up by virtue of having new builds or rebuilds. So he's reaching people who are doing important work to all of our lives. And he's reaching it in a long-term relationship that keeps them back away from chaos, who Scott says is the enemy. And it sure is. If we can get chaos just to the edge of our lives and have some peace and quiet so we can think and care about others and care about what we do, we'd all want to have some service like that which Scott and his business partners provide. I'll let the conversation tell you more about that, and there's a LinkedIn profile that'll be in the description. So this has been really exhilarating for me. I'm excited to know that his business right now is probably making the lives and livelihoods better for well over 1,000 people around the country who get up every morning and build. So here's Scott Beebe. A moment before I turned on the camera, folks, I asked Scott Beebe, how would you introduce yourself if someone came up to you and said, "Hey, Scott, how are you? What do you do?" And he said, "This is your cue, Scott."
So my response was to liberate owners from chaos and make time for what matters most.
Better you saying that, because I love it. And who wouldn't want that help? I can't imagine in 2024 with AI coming along and bumping people over a little bit and saying, "Hey, move over whatever you are selling as a service. We can do it now cheap," for example. So let me pose the issue that while you are helping people manage chaos, your own company has to continually do the same.
Yeah.
Because as much as I see some wonderful branding preparation and clear record of service, I can't imagine that you're just sitting there with full complacency while you're helping small business people in particular get rid of their complacency.
It's funny, Dave.
Tell me a little bit about your company and whether that's in a constant state of improvement.
Yeah. Thanks for asking. And by the way, congratulations on the volume of episodes that you've put on this podcast and others that you've been on, and even your thought leadership with you and your late friend Peter Vale around this idea of practice and why practice matters. And I'm sure we'll dive more into that idea. But yeah, our business is pretty straightforward, and you are 100% correct that we don't sit around. Sorry about that. We don't sit around in a constant state of contemplation, just awaiting the next thing. We are relatively proactive in what we do, but that is what we do: is we liberate owners from chaos every day to try and make time for what matters most. And we're a team of 10 full-time coaches and support team members. And this team of 10, we work with 92 businesses around the country. About 80+% of those are in the what we call the AEC space, the architectural engineering and construction space. We work with a lot of contractors around the country, and basically we've got a sort of a three-pronged methodology for in our practice for working with businesses. And it follows the analogy of mountain climbing. And we've got a base camp segment of what we take clients through, which has its own unique roadmap that we've built. Then we've got what we call the first mountain segment of that, where most owners walk through this or walk up the same first mountain, and that involves a lot of repetition, predictability, and meaning around the base camp tools that we put in: vision, mission, value, systems, processes, job roles, org charts, all that stuff. And then in the spirit of David Brooks, the New York Times columnist who wrote a great book called The Second Mountain, we then invite owners into that second mountain. And we say that second mountain, Dave, is it's foggy, it's hazy, it's unique to you, and nobody's ever been there. And so what we serve as is, while at base camp and first mountain, we're very experienced guides with those two stages because we've done it hundreds of times now. We're not experienced up your second mountain, although we're experienced in helping others trek their second mountain. So we've got guide experience up the second mountain. We've just never been on yours because nobody ever has.
It's a great analogy.
Experiencing it for the first time. Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's what we spend our time doing. And of course, there's substance to all of that, but as a high level, that gives you a little snapshot of what we practice every day.
Peter and I, throughout the 32 conjectures about practice, threaded the insight that he brought in the late 80s that all people managing are going to be doing so, if not now, in what he called permanent whitewater. So he used a very powerful analogy that stuck with him and right up to our look at practice, because practice, whether it's a person or in this case a collection, a purpose called a company, you get to do what you know how to do for a while. And then what Peter said is suddenly that knowledge, that system, that process doesn't work anymore. And you become a new beginner. And now imagine you've got someone running one of these very successful construction firms who's been kicking it for years, even got through the pandemic, got through the supply chain issues and so forth. And they're rocking it again, building, and then along comes something they never could have anticipated.
That's right.
Now, that's a planful way of getting to the second mountain you're talking about. What was, I guess I'm conjecturing here, Scott, is sometimes while you're still climbing the first one, it turns into a second mountain, at least a little bit.
Yeah, it can, and there's going to be flashes. You'll get, think about. I love using analogy, but when you're in one environment and you get a wave of cool. We were walking in, I think it was Rocky Mountain National Park, or it was some national park. I don't remember. It has these caves, and no, it wasn't Rocky Mountain. Anyway, we were walking through these caves, and when it was blazing hot outside. I mean, just insanely hot outside. But once you turn the corner of this cave, it immediately went down to about 60 something degrees, just this cool. And in that moment, there was a nostalgia that hit you that made me think about other caves that I've been in other places. And there are moments when you're climbing that first mountain where you will catch a whiff, you'll catch a breeze, you'll catch something in there that will sort of give you perspective, insight, anticipation for what's coming in that second mountain. And although you've not been there yet, you sort of anticipate, okay, I think this could be around the corner of what you have to experience. And so, of course, the experiences that we have do some form to practice and prepare us in repetition to get ready for that second mountain thing. In fact, in your word of practice, we have what we call the RPMs of great leadership. And fundamental to practice is repetition. So they are repetition, predictability, and meaning. Yeah. And so what does a coach tell you to do? Hey, let's rep that again. Let's rep that again. Let's rep that again. And that's part of great practice. It's catching a whiff of those things that might be coming in the second mountain and go ahead and repping some of those things in the first mountain to get you ready.
I think the meaning part of the RPM is particularly attractive to us, us teachers and coaches, as you are, because in repetition without meaning, without having it come to a point where one feels some reward, some even significance is someone basically the old kind of labor where you just shovel, shovel stone for a whole day and then you went home exhausted. And the life had little meaning. And we, fortunately, in most ways, at least in the States, we've been able to elevate work to a level that people can find meaning into it and see themselves actually growing. Whether they're hammering, well, you don't hammer anymore. They use nail guns. But no matter what they're using, they still, the meaning there is, the old story. I'm not a stone layer. I'm building a cathedral.
Yes,
so you've got in that industry you're supporting, you've got people who, if they can get the RPM to the meaning part and then continually get meaning, they'll do the first two because they understand that a practiced hand is safe and it's craft. So you're working with a very interesting population. I'm going to switch around very quickly, though, to the question of chaos. Because when you're knocking on the door of a new potential customer, you're saying, we're here because you're in chaos. And how do they take that? I'm not in chaos. Look, everything's... So how did you come to that point of looking at chaos as essentially a door opener?
Yeah, it's funny. It is a door opener and it's a shared enemy. And I'll go back to the term that you used of permanent whitewater. Human beings at some point were made for some level of rest, not all rest, but partial rest. 50, 60, 65 hours a week, we sleep, we rest.
That's right.
And so we're built to have some sort of restorative thing. Now, you can also get people that they hear that, they trigger on that, and then they take it too far. We're pendulum swingers as well by nature, and we take it too far. And so what we say is, I need more margin. I need more margin. How do I get more margin? We're in a constant state of margin, never recognizing the margin that we currently have. So this pendulum can swing, but most times it's statistically safe to say that most people we come in contact with who are business owners are subjecting themselves to chaos. So it's not that the chaos exists. Chaos will always exist.
Yeah.
We have a common enemy.
They're not running from it.
Yeah. And so anybody from a faith background has probably heard the old quote, the enemy prowls around like a roaring lion looking to devour anything in its path. Well, that's chaos. Chaos, prowls. It's on the hunt. It crouches. It sneaks. Sometimes it's loud. Sometimes it's quiet. But chaos comes in, and that you've got somebody drastically in chaos when they'll actually brag on it, and they'll tell you.
I hear it all the time.
Yeah.
How was your day? Oh, it was crazy.
Oh, it's crazy.
How many times have you heard that? Oh, how was you? Oh, it was crazy. Oh, it was crazy at work today. Or when I'm playing golf, I play with a lot of retired people during the weeks, but sometimes there'll be an actual civilian who'll come out there who's still running a business. And he'll be, shaking a little bit in his hands. I don't know if I'm going to hit this drive. I'm still too keyed up from what happened at the shop yesterday.
Yeah.
And of course, being the old retired professor, I would be tempted to ask him to tell me about it. Then I wouldn't get to the third hole. So I don't. But I sense with people who are out there doing real work in the real world, as we call it, that there's a bit of brag about the crazy.
Yeah. It's become so. I've got a client of mine sent me a Garfield. Actually, let me show it to you. It's right
Oh, yeah.
Called Garfield. Chaos Cat. And so it sent me a Garfield. It looks crazy. It's got suction cups on it. And so it fits here on the window. And then pinned on the rear end of the Chaos Cat is something that we call the Busy Badge. So this is an actual metal badge, kind of a firefighter's or a sheriff's badge. And on the top, it says the Busy Badge. And on the bottom, it asks simply, why are you so busy?
Yeah.
And BOP, of course, is the name of our business. And so it's just a constant reminder that chaos is the enemy until chaos becomes your addiction. And for some, if chaos went away, they wouldn't know what to do. In the same way that if somebody is wrestling with alcohol, when the alcohol goes away, they don't know
Oh,
what
yeah.
to do.
That's
And
right.
so it has become a legitimate addiction for many people. But the truth is, most people want to get away from it. They literally don't know how. There is
I
no
agree.
methodology, there's no plan. And so in their mind, their identity has become busy. So busy has become their identity. We call busy the new four-letter curse word.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
and it's become their identity. And instead of walking away from that identity, they lean into it. So whenever we go speak, our message, what we come out with, I always start by introducing my family and sharing our family mission is to be a light and create space through wisdom, adventure, and time around the table. And then I'll parlay that into our business mission.
Mhm.
And that is when I take the family mission and then bring it to the business mission, which you've already heard of liberating owners from chaos to make time for what matters most. And so we'll start our talks out that way. And usually by doing that, we can literally look out and see who's resonating with it versus those who are kind of, curmudgeons just
Yeah. The
going,
old
hey, this is my
folded
life and there's nothing
arms.
you're going to do to change
Yeah.
this. So
Yeah.
we don't
Yeah.
say that we're going to eliminate chaos. That's not possible. The chaos
No.
is always on the prowl. But what we are going to do is give you an option to be liberated from the chaos that surrounds you. And by doing that, you'll make time for the things that matter, and quite frankly, for the people that matter as well.
See, that's the, if I were the one out there with my arms folded at this particular trade show or wherever you're speaking, I I partly I'm sitting there thinking, oh, at least it's at least I'm not on my phone. At least I don't have someone running out from the warehouse telling me we're all out of 2x6s or whatever.
Yeah.
This is so peaceful. And now here's this guy up here talking about chaos, but at least it's peaceful. And so
Yeah.
what I guess I'm inferring is I'm certainly not a student of your business, but I get what you're talking about. Is that if you're going to help me have more of a long moment or two in a day of that feeling of peace and composure and a chance to think, particularly about the business and where it's headed, now I'm going to listen to you because
Yeah.
I know down in my gut
Yeah.
that I'm not thinking, I'm reacting.
Yeah. That's right.
And I'm taking a whole bunch of people's livelihoods with me.
That's
You
the
know?
that's the one thing that we've got to be very mindful of. We've got a whole methodology around recruiting, hiring, and onboarding. And one of the key elements of hiring is defining the gap that we're hiring for.
Yeah.
The majority of the time when we're in chaos, what we do is we just hire to what we feel in the moment.
Yep.
We need to
Yep.
hire a project manager. Okay, go find one. And then we
Yep.
find them. We either overpay them, underpay them. We find the wrong person, like all the ills that come with
Who
that.
doesn't understand what you're doing in the first place? So
That's right. And then when they come in day one, we start the process of babysitting because we don't know what we're asking them to do the second we walk in. And then we look at them and go, well, I thought you were a project manager before. Well, I am, but I've never been a project manager here. Those
yeah.
are two different things. And so having been a PM at company A versus being a PM at company B, two totally different experiences. And even take a podcast. So I think you've been on plenty of podcasts as a guest, and I've been on
Yeah,
plenty
I
of
have.
podcasts as a guest. Every single guest experience is different. It's all different. There's
No
a lot of
question.
fundamental principles, recording, microphone, speakers,
Make it a
volume,
conversation.
yeah. But most of them have a far different experience when they're involved. And
That's
so
true.
it's sort of a newness and an evolution every time you come in with those things. And so, yeah, that's why we've got to go back. And when we see somebody in chaos, go, hey, we're going to bring you into a methodology. We're not following our client. Our client is following us. We're the guide. And so to be able to walk them in and go, hey, you're the one that's in chaos. We're the one that can sort of get you out of that. But you're going to have to follow us to be able to do that because we've got some things laid out that, quite frankly, of your own divide, you won't do yourself because you haven't done them yourself.
I
And
understand
so we
that.
need you to get in shape. And so we're going to start doing that for you.
Yeah. I've been on and off the Weight Watchers program since the late 60s. And here I am again. And they have wonderful tools now, methodologies. They have an excellent, I guess we call a lecture. I don't even know what we call them anymore. But the fact is that I can't find the will in myself to maintain my weight and lose some. And so I pay to go to Weight Watchers for their methods. Now, here's the deal. It's all clear. It's never been better as far as, and I'm not just pitching them. There's many of these health weight management programs out there. The point is, I know darn well when I'm not tracking or I'm not doing this stuff. And I say to myself in my head, what are you spending the money for? And then I say, but I need the method. Well, why don't you use it? So that internal conversation probably goes on with some of your clients. And not everyone's going to right away take your methodology and say, okay, I'm going to follow Scott's pattern here. There's got to be some internal struggle because, frankly, some of these people built these businesses from mainly, from the ground up. If they're in their 50s now, and now they're really witnessing the chaos. They know they need method. They know they need an external support system in person. But how do you get them to say, okay, take me, I'm ready.
Yeah.
Maybe I'll try that on Saturday when I go to Weight Watchers.
Give it a shot. Yeah, I think one of the things that when we talk about the whole idea of recruiting or take me, hire me, the one thing that generations want more than anything else is clarity. All generations want this. We want clarity above all else. Clarity comes through repetition and practice over and over and over and over again, saying the same things over and over again. Now, we may need to update what we say based on the results that we're getting and all of that. We've got to look at that, of course. But the reality is the more that we can put on repetition, the good things, the more that we'll actually build culture. And when we're looking for people to bring in, people that are going, hey, pick me, take me, one of the things that we've got to invite them into is a culture and not just an idea. It's got to be an actual culture that they can see, touch, feel, experience. How do we explain that culture? We explain it through clarity. So when we look around at any element of the business, any system of the business, any methodology of the business, whatever, the question is, can I see it? Like, can you show it to me? And so we'll ask people all the time, do you have a vision for your company? Oh, yeah. What, will you print it out and show it to me? Oh, it's not written down. It's just in my head. Michael Gerber said in E-Myth, if you don't write it down, you don't own it. Now, we stated a little harsher. If you don't write it down, it doesn't exist, period. And so I think this idea of either the person on the outside going pick me or the person on the inside looking to pick certain people as they're coming in, we've got to start asking ourselves the process that we have, the thoughts that we have, the ideas that we have. Are they in our head? Or are they actually captured and documented and written down, recorded, however they're captured, so that those who read it may run? So there's an old Hebrew wisdom tract that was picked up about 3,500 years ago. It says, write the vision down so that those who read it may run. Now, I could make an argument that the vision is a fill in the blank. Write the vision down, write the process down, write the mission down, write the values down, whatever, so that those who read it can run. And it doesn't tell you which way they run, by the way. Dave, they might run with you, or they might run away from you. Yeah. Because it's divisive. It's necessary. When we write things down, it's necessarily divisive, and it's hard, but it's good. The divisiveness is good when it's not just haphazard divisiveness. I'm not talking about that. Because
you keep the people who want to run with you and who want to get to the second mountain.
That's right. That's exactly right.
Yeah.
Exactly right.
Oh, I love it. Now, you have folks deployed and getting more of a sense of how you manifest your presence in these companies since they're around the country.
Yeah.
I assume a lot of it is virtual. But how do you get enough, almost daily, presence with your clients so that they become more and more disciplined and become more and more clear and provide that clarity to their team?
Yeah.
So the key question is, how do you keep in touch?
Yeah. We work constantly on this. We talk about it constantly. I'll tell you what we have deployed now that for the most part seems to work. And we do about 60% of our work is virtual, 40%, 30 to 40% is in person. And so there is a split method around how we do some of that. And then obviously those that are away from us here in the low country of South Carolina, it's a lot harder to maintain relationship and connectedness with those. But we work really hard to do that. We've got some live events and different things, but we decided to have a coaching method that is a much higher touch coaching methodology than many of what people are experienced with or used to in the past. And so we tell our new potential clients and clients that come in that there are 52 touch points in a given year. So 1 a week with us.
That's good.
We do 4 live events down here every year that you can come to. We do 24 optional group meetings that they can hop on, small group meetings with other owners around the country. Those are really insightful. And then we have another 24 mandatory meetings with your coach, your dedicated coach one-on-one. We have 7 full-time coaches.
So they all have a coach.
That's right. And they all have that coach. So we're not, splitting around and we're
Good
having, hey,
model.
remind me again what you guys talked about. No.
Good model.
We get so close with our clients that, let's see, it's at the end of March. In less than 2 months, I will be officiating the wedding of the director of construction and the director of selections coordination for one of my clients who I've been working with for 6 years now, who live on the West Coast, by the way. They don't live down the street.
They're going to fly you out?
Yeah. And so I'll go out to Sacramento, California, and I'll officiate a wedding.
That's
and so
wonderful.
we're doing everything that we can. We know not only our clients' names, we know their spouses' names, their kids' names. We know where they're at. We try to know as much as we possibly can to create that human connection so that when we have those mandatory and optional touch points throughout the year, that we maximize those times, not only with the life connection, but also with the efficiency of what we do. Because the other thing we do is we do a flipped classroom model. So we've got all of our coaching modules in the installation roadmap, in the implementation roadmap, and the executive leader and legacy planning roadmap. Each one of those has all of these different tools. Well, we have actually technologically recorded all of those. And you coming from a past educational background, we flipped the classroom. So everything that we would say on every call, hey, here's how you do your vision story, 7 categories, you start with turn, blah, 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 all the way down. We just put that in a 20-minute video recording. So our client watches that on their own. And so when we're together, we dive in on customizing that for them.
Now we're talking about conversation. Exploration, mutual.
That's right.
Mutual discovery. The flipped is very effective. And now that we have the technology, the cloud, the streaming, all the rest, it becomes something I can't imagine any consultancy not doing. Because these guys, women too, are not paying just for the video. In fact, they can search the web now or ask AI, give me 10 of the best videos on how to,
that's right,
how to deal with a out of balance sheet, and it's all there. Yeah. So as an empathetic teacher consultant myself, I know that we still got to have something that we do with the time when they're not looking at our technology, where it really, really matters. And my sense of you, Scott, already is if you've got 9 or 10 other people who are as engaging as you and who are sincere about that business's success, they will say, I'll watch the video, but I want to get into the meat with you. I want you to know a problem that just occurred.
Yeah. And we get into a lot of situational challenges because they trust us to that point. They go, hey, this just happened. My number 2 key leader just left. Like, what do I do?
There you go.
I just found out that this, we're out of compliance on this issue. What do we do? And so we get into a lot of situational stuff because of the trust that's been developed over time with the methodology that we put in. So we practice. For the moment, I've sat in on surgery with surgeons a few times before in my life, and I'm always fascinated by it. When you get done, you're like, that didn't look so hard. And you realize they're not training the surgeon to do the normal stuff. They're training the surgeon to know what to do when the normal stuff goes wrong.
Yeah, that's a key point.
Same for the pilots and everything else, right? It's not that most of you can. I've done one of those 1-hour kind of promotional check rides in a small little airplane. They'll let you take the thing off and almost land it. Your first time ever up in a plane. That's not the hard part. The hard part's when your engine shut off and it won't come back on.
Yeah. You hit a wind shear.
Yeah. And that's what they've got us here for. Are those unique situational things as well.
I think some hope then for those of us who are, I'm scratching my 81-year-old chin about the onset of AI. And now I'm thinking, well, we humans, because I'm all about HI, human intelligence, but I want at least a fair match. But what I get and hearing what you said is, okay, if AI can support getting the repetition and the practice to an even higher state, so there's even less heavy lifting, then that'll free human imagination, which is fueled by their intelligence.
Yeah.
And in these case, these men and women who build these businesses, they know their stuff. I know I grew up in a Maine family connected to the construction industry. I know they know their stuff.
Yeah.
So it's not about someone coming out there and saying, this won't inspect well. You've got to fix it. My uncle being a master plumber, and I was a plumber's helper at 12.
Oh, that's great.
He'd have me crawling under camps in Maine with spiders and snakes and everything else, saying, take a look at that trap. Tell me, is it leaking? So I guess I'm saying is I really have tremendous respect for people who can work in the architectural and construction realm. But I also know that if they can use some support through technology to build in better sort of organizational habits, that's great. But they still need to be able to use that expertise, not only to keep the project online and finish it, but also to garner new business.
Yes.
How do you help them with that piece, the new business? I'm watching my clock and I love this, but I got to keep it relatively shorter or my listeners will be looking at their phones. It's natural nowadays. Oh, I paid attention for 28 minutes. Why? All right, well, here we go. How do you help with that mandate for every business of every size, particularly small businesses, which is while they're taking care of the current obligations, they have to be prospecting. Yeah. Is that built into your roadmap and to the levels that you work on?
Yeah, we get this question a lot. So you guys marketing coaches or you sales coaches? And we'll say yes, but not in the way that you think. And what that means is we're not Facebook ad people, we're not SEO people, we're not whatever. We're principle-based coaches. We're not strategy coaches. Strategy, is kind of the hit du jour, whatever's working today. If Instagram ads are working today or AI chatbots are working today, whatever, give it 5 years and it'll be something completely different 5 years from now. That's strategic. We're principle-based coaches. And what we do, this business has already sold things. They've already procured customers. So the first thing we want to know is we want to systematize what has already worked to put it on repeat and autopilot while we go innovate new things. We've got what we call the ground game and air support. The ground game is where 80% of your work has come from in the past. Mm-hmm. And usually we'll get the cop out of, well, it's come from word of mouth. We don't know where it's come from. No. We can code, kind of codify where all of that word of mouth came from. Were they past clients? Were they, ball club friends? Were they what we can figure that out where it comes from. And so the classic example for like a home builder is many of their projects come from architects.
Yeah.
And what a lot of home builders want to do is they want to innovate and go, oh, we're going to do AI ads and all this. And we'll stop them and go, hey, we'll get there. It's fine if you want to do that and give it a shot. We're going to put a budget to it. We're going to put metrics to it and all that stuff. But before we get there, that's air support. You can't win awards just in the air. You got to have a ground game to some degree. And your ground game is the bread and butter. It's the thing that just you keep coming back to. And so if in the past, most of your business has come through architects, well, then why wouldn't we create a list of your 10 local architects and set up lunch once a week over the next 3 months and keep doing it month after month?
Have a love affair. Yeah, exactly.
And over time, plans just keep coming in. And then we'll add 5 new architects to it, right? So ground game, well, I don't want to do all that work. Oh, okay. So now we got to the real issue. And so if you don't want to do it and it needs to be done, then who's going to do it? And then so we'll set up the system of marketing using whatever tools background But the first question we always ask is, where has 80% of your business come from? We'll codify the answer to that question and then put a plan in place to just go over the top and going back to that well until it's dried up completely, which most haven't. We just stop fishing them. But most of the times we keep fishing that hole, we'll still find fish in that thing that's been bread and butter for us for a long time.
I love it. That's great. Well, in the last couple of minutes, Scott, I want to talk with you about you, because you really project not just acumen, but enthusiasm.
Mm.
How does this resonate with your own principles and purpose in life to be doing this work this way?
Yeah. This work is, if you go back to our mission of liberating owners from chaos, I hate chaos. I think it's stolen a lot of lives. And so when I say it's a mutual enemy, I mean it. It's a mutual enemy that has taken a lot of people's lives and continues to take the life. I'm not talking about life and death. I'm talking about life,
the quality
while
of
living.
life.
Yes. And it's stolen that. And so, we're at this unique inflection point in life where Ashley and I have just moved into empty nesting. So we clearly saw the volume of teenagers to the lack of volume of teenagers post leaving home. Now they still call, we still talk all the time. We spend time with them. We're having lunch together this weekend. Like, we talk all the time, but the volume of that chatter has gone down quite a bit.
Mm.
And then what we're also seeing is we're starting to see the post empty nest life played out among people that we lived life with while we were going through all that.
Mm-hmm.
And what I'm amazed by, Dave, is the compounding effect of chaos. And when it's not dealt with, what it compounds into, to the place that you talk about, real destruction of people's lives through ruptured relationships and all this sort of thing. And so I think if there's anything that maintains the motivation, you talk about the enthusiasm. There are days that the enthusiasm comes from a place of real, just natural sincerity. And there are days that the enthusiasm comes because I'm faking it as best I can. Because
I understand.
because I want the message to come through. And if the message has to come through a little bit of artificially developed enthusiasm, then it's worth it to be able to do that. But we can't conquer chaos with mundanity, with extreme boredom, and being flatlined in how we present. So there's got to be an element of enthusiasm that comes with that. But the enthusiasm, here's the other part. The enthusiasm must first be built on a solid foundation of substance and content that really works. We say this all the time to our coaches, is the relationship does not buy you the acumen as a coach. The acumen as a coach buys you into the relationship. And so when you start out coaching a new client, we're going to ask them about big wins. We'll talk to them about their family, but our priority is to coach them in their business. And then over time, we will get to know the personal side of who they are. The coaching earns the relationship.
And the 80%.
And the 80%.
I'm thinking now, as I conclude this wonderful conversation with Scott Beebe, if I were able to do the math in this tired old head of the number of clients that they have currently in their system, and then imagine that those clients have at least 5 to 50 men and women whose livelihoods are connected to their ability to keep that business going and growing, it probably multiplies out to 1,000 people who are going to work today, in some ways thanks to you and your company. I think that must be very, very satisfying to know that you're putting a meal on every one of those tables, and a good living that goes with construction nowadays. So congratulations.
Dave, thank you for saying that. Perspective has helped. I'm really, really grateful.
Sorry about the math, though. I can.
Let's
assume
We've
it's
actually
1,000.
done the calculation. It's somewhere between 1,000 and 1,500. But yes.
There you go. There you go. Every one of them. And, all of us want to have meaning in our lives. We want that second mountain to be have a great view when we get to the top of it. But I think the great view for your company and you as a person, as a practitioner, is that you can look out and see, I helped them at that place. We helped build that. They, that these are the places where we've mattered, and that's pretty darn good extension.
Yeah,
for anyone's practice.
I completely agree with you. Yes, it's been great.
So thank you very, very much,
Dave. Thank you for making this stage possible, and for these conversations to be able to possible to so many.
Thank you for listening to the Practice Podcast, conversations probing the nature of practice. If you'd like to hear more, go to Automatic, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or YouTube. And please consider purchasing our book on practice as a way of being at mylibrary.world. It's a digital book with lots of features that you do not see in a conventional book. So once again, thank you, and I look forward to you listening again.